All right, hi everybody. My name is Julio, and welcome to the latest edition of Kickstarter Creator Hangout. And my name is Julio. I'm the director here of the Tech and Design Outreach team at Kickstarter, and I have Peter Deering here today from the awesome team at Peak Design. And Peter, founded Peak Design, which is a mission-driven Bay Area company that creates just amazing camera and lifestyle gear. And like all the gear that they've created is really designed, and he can probably tell you this better in his own words, but it's designed to enable creative and adventurous people to capture the beautiful world around us. To date, they've actually run 5 amazingly successful Kickstarter campaigns. The first one was way back in 2011 for a product called the Capture Camera Clip, which was a device that allows a camera to be rigidly secure to your body, but also making it really easy for you to at any point access it and take pictures. And their latest effort, which was also their most successful effort to date, was the Everyday Messenger Bag, which is just a beautifully designed bag that crafted with the utmost attention and just the perfect bag for your gear. So before I kind of dive in and get started asking Peter some questions, I wanted to let everybody know that this is a live conversation. So please feel free to submit questions. I know we've even already received a few questions, and you can submit questions in 3 ways. You can submit them through our Google Hangouts page, through Facebook, or by tweeting at Kickstarter Tips. So really quick, let's just start, Peter, with a little bit of background. Can you tell us a little bit about the story of how Peak Designs came to life?
Sure. Thanks, Julio. Good to be here, man. Thanks. Really appreciate having a chance to chat with you folks as well. Try to always figure out how to get this in as quick. Of course, it's become the story of my life. Back in the very beginning of 2010, I kind of committed to quitting my job based on one of a couple different entrepreneurial ventures that I'd sort of dreamed up in my head. And the one that presented itself as the most viable thing was this idea of the Capture Camera Clip, something I thought of in 2008 while traveling around with an SLR camera, on my bouncing off my stomach as I go through seeing the world, riding motorcycles around and stuff. And I said, why couldn't I just like mount it right here? Because I always had a backpack on. So that was the entire impetus of the company. And I was a 26-year-old kid. I had 0 experience with entrepreneurship, with venture capital. All of these things were completely foreign to me. The entire business was founded on the principle of, hey, here's an idea. I think I could make this thing. And I think that if I did make it, I could get certain people to buy it. I don't know how many, but I also think I could get them to pay more than what I make it for. And that very, very simplistic make a widget and sell it for more than it costs to make was the entire calculus of starting the company, which is, I think, a bit ironic in today's day and age, particularly living in the Bay Area. Nobody does that. Nobody does that. Everybody's seeking funding and venture capital, and I understand why. It's likely because tools like Kickstarter weren't around back in the day. So dumb luck was that Kickstarter was starting up at the same time I was starting up, and it was just perfectly suited to the crowd that I was targeting and the type of mechanism that I was putting out there. Through a lot of good fortune, it became the 2nd most funded project at the time on Kickstarter, caught a lot of buzz. I hired the right people, which include your friends of mine. Adam Saraceno was my first hire, a good buddy of mine from college, from Bose College in San Francisco. And honestly, it's been rinse and repeat since then. We continue to search for problems that exist within our market, which started as just like SLR cameras, right? So we made the camera clip, then we made really great camera straps, and then we're kind of growing and growing and growing. Now we've been making camera bags, but those camera bags are also just great bags for everybody. So the story is just a repeat of trying to solve problems, do it in an elegant and transparent way, and grow very, very organically, not try to outpace our own means. And Kickstarter specifically as a funding and sales and marketing vehicle is what's allowed that. So I think that's the story.
Awesome. No, that's great. I think you answered already, you know, the two other next questions that I had, which were around what led you to launching Kickstarter at first, you know, and let's talk a little bit more about that first campaign though. You know, I know it was a while back, so I don't know if how much as you remember, but like, what was that experience of running a first time campaign? I know that we often get often talking to first time creators and you know, like, what were some of the like challenges that you encounter, if you still remember that, like as a first time creator, you were like, oh shit, I really, you know, this is something I should, I wish I had known beforehand.
Well, funny enough, because it was, you know, it was so new and it was so new to me, those challenges didn't become clear. Like looking back on it now, with what I know today and looking how I ran that first one, it's like, you know, it could be seen as embarrassing, but going through it, it was like, oh my God, everything is working great. And when people had questions, I remember like that I felt warranted like some kind of a video explanation. You know, I went outside with my tripod into a vacant parking lot and like stood there like, see, you can do it like this, and or whatever it may be. And it was very, very organic and natural. That is a terrifically overused word, but the fact it was that, you know, I was just doing what seemed to make the most sense. And because Kickstarter was also so new, the playbook wasn't written yet. And, you know, it would have been more difficult to make a plainly wrong step simply because there weren't those sets of instructions.
That makes sense. And in terms of that first campaign, was this also the first time that you know, actually manufactured and distributed a product, or from your background, did you have experience doing that before?
No, that was it. I will say that I was fortunate kind of in that I came from the construction world. So I did commercial construction. And what that did is it gave me kind of an understanding of, okay, in the world, there are designers, and then there are contractors who build things. And then those contractors might have other contractors, kind of the general contractors, subcontractor structure. Now I placed myself somewhere in the middle. I kind of was the general contractor because that's what I knew, but I was also the designer. And frankly, we brought a lot of I brought a lot of the principles that I had learned in construction to manufacturing. And only later in life, as we started making hires for people, Rob Jankura comes to mind, who was one of the lead engineers at Specialized Bicycles. He kind of took a look under the hood and said, like, you guys are actually doing a really pretty good job with respect to documentation and your process. It was still kind of a mess, but Specialized is a mess. And I think a lot of these companies are a mess. So no real experience bringing a product to market, just a vague impression of how to maybe go about it.
That's great. I mean, I think now you've changed that in a big way. But then talking a little bit about that first campaign, you know, if I recall correctly, that campaign ran for a pretty long time. Can you talk a little bit about how you select, and this is something also, one of the questions is asking that here as well, is how do you determine how long a campaign should be?
Well, for me, it was mostly based on the fact that my girlfriend was due to give birth to our daughter on July 1st. And so I needed to bridge that. Like if I was going to run this thing now, it was either finish it before that or bridge it with enough so that, like, you know, I could know that the busy times would be after she was, you know, out of the womb. So I kid you not, that had a significant measure in it. That probably doesn't answer the question that the person is asking whatsoever. However, our current tactic on that is that, and this is kind of contra to the advice that's on Kickstarter, which I understand why you guys suggest shorter campaigns make more sense. But for us, you've got to, and I think that it's common also, if you're in the business of creating and selling products, as we essentially are on Kickstarter, then Kickstarter just so happens to be one of the the best possible ways to create backers, sales. Doesn't matter really what word you want to use for it. So we have our campaigns up there as long as possible, and that's 60 days. I think that obviously you would, if Kickstarter has said have your campaign as long as you possibly want, I don't think that we'd extend much beyond 60 days, because I think that there is something nice to kind of the ephemeral nature of the campaign, and like it opens and it closes.
Yeah.
But we make also really good use of all 60 of those days. We kind of have one thing that we started doing is that, like, on day 15, 30, and 45, in order to kind of continue the excitement and the buzz, we try to release other mini products or littler things that we've been working on, which don't warrant the attention of a full Kickstarter, but that we want to get out there.
No, that's great. And you know, can you talk a little bit also about, just because I know that the way, and we were just talking about this before the Hangout, I know that the way that you guys, you know, think about like how your campaign fits into your overall product development lifecycle differs from a lot of other creators. So could you talk a little bit about that, about how the campaign fits into your process and where you are at in the product development lifecycle when you're running a campaign?
Sure. This is the number one piece of advice that I give when I talk about this subject, is that try to do everything you can to make your manufacturing ready to go. Like when you press play on that Kickstarter campaign, you know, I'm not suggesting that you have all the product made right at that point, but I'm suggesting that you do everything you can to make it so that that product, the manufacturing and shipping on a boat, if need be, is completed as close as possible to that end date of that campaign. If you can get those things to sync up perfectly, then you're really killing it. We have never gotten those things to sync up perfectly, but always within a couple of weeks of the end of the campaign is when we have that product ready. Now that means that we probably wrote a purchase order for the product and started developing it in lockstep with our manufacturer upwards of 10 months prior, 8 months prior. Physical products are immensely difficult to bring together. It takes an incredible amount of time, and the devil is in the details. And so you need to have that time built in your schedule to tweak those details, because those are the things that make people receive a product, open it up, and go, holy shit, this thing is cool. I'm going to tell my friends about it. You know, that's what, and that is the magic that's been propelling this company forward.
That's awesome. And actually, just a question, a little bit, one of our listeners has asked a question here about how much experience did you have with the photography world before you started your venture, and how did your confidence or even naivete around this field of photography kind of helped and impacted your process?
That's a great question. I think that the naivete helps in a lot of ways, because it allows fresh eyes on a situation. You know, both the naivete with respect to photography and product design and manufacturing. All of these things allowed me to kind of just inject my own fresh ideas about what I thought made decent sense, and then kind of reorganize as I learned more about the professional world surrounding these industries. But photography, I mean, I got a camera when I was a senior in high school, and I loved it, and it's always been a hobby of mine, and like something that I use the word passion pretty. I don't want to use that one that often, but at times I've been passionate about taking photos. And when I was out on that trip in 2008, like, I considered it my job to document the world. Whether those pictures are all that badass or not is, you know, in the eye of the beholder. There were a couple shots I thought were pretty cool, and I certainly enjoyed it. But I am by no stretch a legendary photographer. But one thing that's cool is that the business that we have in the photography world, and like the way that we sell products, is we have to take photos and videos of us using them. So everything we do, which is my hobby and my passion anyways, circles back into the business, which is really, really convenient and really fun. And particularly with respect to video, and editing videos and creating them and writing the scripts, creating these movies has been a really fun part of the job. And as has flying drones, which is an important part of any modern video, if you ask me.
That's awesome. Going back a little bit to something you hit on earlier when you were talking about, people receiving the product and being like blown away by the quality and the attention to detail. Like that feels very related to the notion of building community and building a fan base, I would even say, around the products that you guys create. I'd love for you to talk a little bit about that, but also in the context of a campaign, because I think that's one of the things that, having a strong community, I think the community that, like you guys have built up can be such a powerful force. And how did you start that process? I mean, now you guys have that community, but can you talk a little bit about, the process of building that over the many projects that you've ran?
Yeah, I think I'd like to use your consideration of attention to detail with respect to the community. It came up fairly, the first Kickstarter campaign was the foundation of the community. And I did two things. I answered every single email that came in with, thoughtful replies that thoroughly answered people's questions. I answered every comment on the comment board in the same manner, truthful and elaborate explanations, and like really giving people the rationale behind decisions made and things like this. And then also was proactive with the updates, perhaps a little bit too much, as well as my high school buddies would let me know. That can be an unkind crew. But just being very, very forthright and transparent with communication and letting people into your lives a little bit. It's like people are going to react and like be there for you and for your company if you show them who you are as a person. And it's not only myself, but my whole team has really done a great job of doing that. And frankly, it's such an honor and a privilege to be able to do that. We're proud, I think, of who we are and what we do. And I think that it comes across as honest and humble, but also like entertaining, and like it gives people a chance to like, oh shit, these guys are like, this is what they do. That's where they live. And oh, that's how they make products. They go to Vietnam and they like, look at, they're filming the process right there. And just like trying to share all of the interesting stuff that we've learned throughout the years of making products, and bring it to our people. And
awesome. And where, I mean, just from like a very tactical perspective, what are the different channels that you use to remain connected to that community? I mean, is it like, is it mostly through email lists, through Facebook groups, through, like real world events and connections? Like what are the different ways that you kind of keep plugged in to
Well, wow, I think you just actually named them, all the ones that are really relevant to us. The email list is the most important thing. Kickstarter updates remain almost, every bit as powerful as an email update, I think, because it's just, that's our core community. Yep. And then social-wise, Facebook is probably number one for us. Instagram, we've been really trying to focus on that a lot at being a photography company. Yeah. The onus is kind of on us to do right there. And then this year is kind of the first time we're hosting a Design Week event in San Francisco on Friday.
Awesome.
It's going to be great. We want to plug more into the really robust design community here in San Francisco. And then we're doing a big, like a 300-person launch we're joining 1% for the Planet this summer, which is a really cool thing. We're going to give away 1% of the sales that we get to different environmental charities. And so there's a big event that's going to be around that, some education with respect to photography and the environment. So, those events like take a lot of work, and we haven't been able to do that stuff in the past. But I'm excited that we're kind of getting to the size where we do get to have that type of engagement.
Awesome. And can you now just talk a little bit about, I mean, now that you guys have run so many projects, what is kind of the planning process? Like, what are the core things? I mean, clearly, from you brought up earlier storytelling and your team's kind of passion and love for kind of, using videos to bring to life products. But can you, tell a little bit like what is like the checklist that you have, of like what are the things we have to do to prepare for our launch?
They're all found in the launch tracker. I can send you a link. No, we have a Google Doc though that provides kind of our roadmap, and the video is the thing that I focus personally on the most. It's kind of like the Kickstarter schedule and the production schedule.
Mm-hmm.
They're not, with the exception of having a filmable prototype for things, they're not all that linked. They can kind of flow like this and that. But then you've got all the writing of the Kickstarter page and all the photo and animated GIF collateral that we need to create for that. And then there's also getting the ad campaigns ready, which is something that we really didn't dive into until last campaign. It's getting different partners on board who can help us push this thing, because as I said to you earlier when we were chatting, there's two things. This is four fingers, but there's that affect how many people end up backing our campaign. It's how many people are we able to get to that campaign, and what percentage of those people are going to back it. And so a great video and a great product affects the number of people that are the percentage of people, and there's a gazillion ways to drive eyes to that campaign, and we try to do them all.
Awesome. And to that point, I mean, there is a question here from somebody in our audience who was asking, specifically about Funded Today that it seems that you used in your previous campaign, and they're asking about your experience with them. So I think it'd be interesting even to make that a more general question, like what has been your experience with third-party consultants and agencies? Like, what kind of recommendations do you give people to help them, decide if to work with a specific consultant or agency?
Sure. Well, there's no doubt that those consulting agencies like Funded Today and Jello will help drive eyes to a campaign. They're unquestionably they've done that. I think it has a lot to do with your own project and your own kind of margins, right? We were able to drive a pretty hard bargain with those folks because we've had proven success and a track record. I think that someone who's coming in who doesn't have that track record is going to have a tougher time, and so I think the piece of advice is just be really, really careful when you're negotiating these deals, because if you get yourself into a situation where you're giving away too much, it's simply not worth it. In our experience, Kickstarter is the #1 easiest platform on which to be profitable. But if you need to pay a third-party consultant to get enough eyes on the campaign just to break even, it's not likely that you're going to have a successful product after the Kickstarter campaign. So if you can negotiate these things and it can be a profitable venture for you, then go for it. But if it's break even, or you're going to do it at a slight loss, thinking that the additional eyes are going to translate into more things down the road, I would be wary of that. That's
great. And now just kind of another question here from our audience that asking, like, when you started Peak Design, and you didn't have a sense yet how Peak Design would evolve. I mean, it was, it seems like you launched it as this one kind of product that you wish you had for yourself. How did you know how to build your team? Like how to hire a team? What were the skills and characteristics that you needed to kind of build a company into what it is now? So like, how did you kind of make these decisions in those early days?
Well, it's funny. I was chatting with Adam last time he was in town. He lives in Austin, and about kind of the beginnings of the company. And I'd had a chance to explore things a little bit more lately. And to be completely honest, the memory is cloudy on it. I certainly recall being adamant that the company was going to be named Peak Design and the product was going to be Capture. So I wanted to have a company that had a general name, not necessarily specific to cameras, but something that would allow it to become something. But at the same time, like, did I pull an Elon Musk where I say, okay, I'm going to start SpaceX, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to make rockets and make efficient commercial space travel with the intent of colonizing Mars in 2065, which is his fucking plan. Did you know that? Crazy. And he's probably going to make it happen. That is not the kind of foresight that went into peak design. Rather, it's been, I used the word organic earlier, and it really, really has been that. Like, I operate almost exclusively based on feel, and not just my own feeling at this point, but I've surrounded myself with people who I trust, with everything that's important to me in my life. And collaboratively, we react based on a little bit of study of the numbers and a lot of our gut. And when you continue to add good people to the team, the collective wisdom of that gut only increases. So it's just been like, when I hired Adam, it was like, man, I am too busy with everything, and I need someone. I have no experience with websites. I need someone who's got some experience with the internet. Adam, boom. And then I'm noting that, like, well, we could use more help in sales, and I'm kind of too busy for that. I got this guy in Luke in the UK calling me up. He seems to have some experience. He's a cool dude. Sure, I'll give him a shot. I'll hire him on a contract at first and like make it a little bit commission based. So that's an easy one. And then with art, it was dumbest luck in the world. I was like, man, I do not know how to run Adobe Illustrator that well. You know what? I'm not even that good at SolidWorks. Does anybody know a designer? My buddy James in the corner, he's like, yeah, my buddy Arts is bartending right now, and he's like a really good designer. And so I brought him on, and like it's one story after another like that. And we're at about 19 folks right now.
Wow.
And that's a weird way to go about hiring people, I know, and it's not something that's necessarily that replicatable, but that's what we've done.
No, that's awesome. That's what we want to hear. And so we only have a few minutes left. So I think we have probably time for another 2 questions. The one thing I wanted to talk about next is now that you've produced, a pretty good number of products. Can you talk a little bit, about like what kind of relationships you've set out? What are the things that now help you get new products done and increasingly complex products done in a way, that you with such high quality? I mean, do you guys have a set of partners that you work with consistently, or do you have like a process now to identify new partners? Like, what is that process like?
Yeah, it's like, for instance, when we got into bags, we've got our buddy Pat who's up in Portland, and his job is to find manufacturers, generally speaking, in Asia. Anywhere, he'll look anywhere in the world, but generally speaking, Asian countries are pumping out the vast majority of product. They've got the machines, they've got the engineers, they've got the know-how, and they've got the labor. And so, it all grew very, very, you can't be too big for your britches. When it was just me, I had to start very small with manufacturers who are also starting small, and they're entrepreneurial people. I feel like at each stage of the game, our partners have been positioned to ourselves with respect to their abilities and the kind of their longevity and sort of the whole risk reward structure. So we're not out there working with Foxconn, and that ain't gonna happen. But we're out there working with people who have come from Foxconn,
Cool.
from an analogy, to strike out on their own with that experience, So I'd say mirror your own level of expertise in the partners that you find. That's probably the most sustainable way to go about it.
Great. And I have just one very quick last question for you, since we're at 29. When are we going to see you again on Kickstarter?
I would love to tell you a day, but let's just say that midsummer is very, very hopeful for us to be back on Kickstarter, our favorite place to be. And I like this trend of doing Kickstarter campaigns during the summer, getting people product in time to enjoy it before the holidays. It seems to be something that works, and so we hope to do it again.
Awesome. Well, Peter, it's been such a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much for joining today, and everybody who's been listening in, thanks a lot for joining us. And that's all we have for today. Take care, everybody.
Thanks, Julio. Bye-bye.
Bye, Peter.